Okay, so before we'll proceed with our Module 3, Unit 1, which covers your sections 24 to 29, allow me to give you additional insights on forgery. Okay? When we talk about forgery, you have to remember that forgery refers only to alteration of signature. If there are any other alterations in the instrument, that will not be covered by the term forgery. So if you will change the due date of the instrument, if you will change the name of the parties, if you will change the amount in the instrument, that will just be considered as material alteration, which is covered by your section 125. And if you will go to your section 125, you will notice there that it made an enumeration of what are considered as material alteration. So you might be wondering, are the enumerations found in section 125 exclusive enumerations? Huh? Yung ba yung applicable ba dyan yung rule on interpretation which includes unius ex exclusio alterius? The answer is no. Okay? What the law does not include, it excludes. Hindi po siya applicable doon. Because the enumeration of what are known as material alterations in section 125 are not exclusive enumeration. So you can still add some instances such as by changing the word order to the word bearer or vice versa. Then in that situation, that is also considered as material alteration. Always remember, when we talk about forgery, it refers only to alteration of the signature. If there are any other alteration in the instrument, hindi na po yan tinatawag na forgery kasi pirma lang po ang forgery. Okay? Ngayon, you have to take note also that there are also individuals who cannot validly raise the defense of forgery. Okay? Sino yun naman yung mga yon? Such as those individuals who already admitted the genuineness of the signature or the genuineness of the entries found in the instrument. Such as your endorsers. Endorsers cannot validly raise the defense of forgery. Why? Because of their warranties. Okay, as found in liabilities 65, 66, paragraphs 1. Ano ang sinabi doon? That the instrument is genuine and in all respect what it purports to be. That if you are negotiating the instrument by delivery, or that if you are negotiating the instrument through special endorsement or through qualified endorsement or a general endorsement as the case may be, you warranted that the instrument is genuine and in all respect what it purports to be. So practically, you have waived your right to raise the defense of forgery. What else? Your acceptor, he cannot also raise the defense of forgery. But, take note, only insofar as the signature of the drawer is concerned. Why? Because the acceptor, by accepting the instrument, warrants that the signature of the drawer is genuine. Okay? That's the reason why the acceptor cannot raise the defense of forgery only if the subject matter is the signature of the drawer. But if there are any other forgeries that happen in the instrument, then the acceptor can still raise the defense of forgery. And then another thing that you need to remember when it comes to that rule on forgery is the concept or the doctrine known as the doctrine of comparative negligence. What is that doctrine of comparative negligence? Under that doctrine of comparative negligence, if there is a loss and that loss was made possible due to the presence of negligence of several parties, then the person, the entity, the individual whose negligence was the proximate cause of the loss shall be the one to suffer that loss. Okay. Take for example, X, owner of a check, okay, a PNB check. Assuming that X lost that PNB check, but for one reason or another, he failed to promptly inform PNB about the loss of his check. And later on, that check of X was later on discovered by Y. But Y, instead of returning the check to X, ano ang ginawa niya? He issued a check in his name. So, pay to Y, he placed his name as the payee, and thereafter forged the signature of X in the instrument, in that particular check. And then, what happened? Pagkatapos, instead of Y depositing the check or presenting the check for encashment with PNB, he thereafter deposited it with BPI kung nasaan yung account niya. Okay? So, if a check of PNB will be deposited with BPI. Ano ang gagawin ni BPI? BPI will now present the check through the clearinghouse committee. Okay? So the representative of BPI will confer with the representative of PNB, and they will determine whether or not the entries found in that particular check, okay, is there any problem? Is the signature okay? Pumasa naman lahat yan. It has been duly approved by PNB. What will happen? PNB will now allow the account of X with PNB to be debited. So, babawasan nila yan. I-deduct nila yung amount. And they will now later on credit it with the account of Y in BPI. So, assuming that Y, after receiving that amount in his BPI account, he thereafter closed the account. So, winidraw niya, close na niya yung account niya with BPI. Now, later on, X discovered that a certain amount is missing from his account. So, he conferred with PNB and he was shown a copy of that check. Nakita niya, oy, hindi ko naman pirma to. But the representative of PNB authorized the withdrawal or the deduction of that amount from the account of X. So, nagrereklamo ngayon si X. In that particular scenario, who do you think shall suffer the loss? Is it X? Is it PNB? Is it BPI? Sino sa kanilang tatlo? Si X ba dahil negligent siya in not timely informing PNB about the loss of his check? Or was it PNB because it approved the deduction in the account of X? Or was it BPI in not failing to identify that the signature of X in that check has been forged? Sino sa palagay ninyo sa kanilang tatlo ang magiging liable? Well, in that particular case, it is PNB which should suffer the loss. Why? Because the negligence of PNB or the PNB's representative in the clearinghouse made possible that loss. So although the three of them can be considered to have been negligent in that situation, it would appear that PNB's negligence what was the proximate cause of the loss. Thus, it is PNB who should suffer that loss. Okay? Kasi sila yung last stats eh. Were it not of the negligence of the employee of PNB, X would not have lost that amount from his account. Okay? So, yun na po yung panguhuli nating discussion on forgery. We can now proceed with our Module 3, Unit 1, which covers your sections 24 to 29. From consideration to what we call as accommodation party. Okay? So, what is this Section 24 all about? Section 24, we have already discussed this one in passing when we were still in omissions. Paragraph B of Section 6. That it's not necessary to place the word for value received. Okay? That you can omit the phrase for value received whenever you are issuing your instrument. Why is that? Because under Section 24, there is a disputable presumption that every negotiable instrument is deemed prima facie issued for a valuable consideration. And once you sign the instrument, you have become a party thereto for value. So once you issued an instrument, there is always a presumption that you are issuing it for a valuable consideration. But what kind of presumption is that? You have to remember that the presumption found in Section 24, that every negotiable instrument is issued for a valuable consideration, that presumption is just a disputable presumption. That this is just a rebuttable presumption. It can be contradicted. It's not yet conclusive. It's not final. So you can prove, you can present evidence showing or tending to show that the instrument was not really issued for a valuable consideration. Okay? Now, in this particular scenario, okay, so for example, if you are a maker, if you are Mr. X, for example, you receive 900 pesos as loan from the creditor. So as payment of that loan from the creditor, ano ang sinabi ni creditor? You will issue to me, you will issue in my favor a promissory note. Bibigyan mo ako ng promissory note. But the promissory note that you will be issuing is not only for 900. Mag-issue ka sa akin ng 1,000. Okay? 900 lang tinanggap ko. Bakit 1,000 ibibigay ko? Okay? Siguro yun ang iniisip mo. But then, the 100 pesos difference now represents the interest for your loan. Kaya pinag-issue ka niya ng promissory note for 1,000, but the actual money that you have received is only 900 pesos. Pero valid ba yun? Valid po yun. Okay? Because there is a disputable presumption that at the time you have issued that particular promissory note, you have received valuable consideration coming from the payee of that instrument. Okay? That presumption found in Section 24 finds support also under the rules on evidence, because one of those disputable or rebuttable presumptions found under the rule on evidence is the fact that when you have issued a check, that check has been issued for a valuable consideration. Okay? So going on further, under your Section 25, yun po yung sinasabi nila na value. What is value? Kasi sabi dito sa Section 24 that every negotiable instrument is issued for a valuable consideration. It's not just an ordinary consideration, but rather it is a valuable consideration. So, what is value? Value refers to any consideration which is sufficient to support a simple contract. It could be a pre-existing obligation. Kaya nagbigay ako ng promissory note, nagbigay ako ng bill of exchange, nagbigay ako ng cheque bilang kabayaran ng aking utang. The issuance of that promissory note or the check or bill of exchange as payment of a pre-existing obligation constitutes also issuance based on a valuable consideration. So pre-existing debt, is that a valuable consideration? The answer would be yes. How about love or affection? Well, although love or affection is a valid consideration, it is not a valuable consideration. Remember, love or affection is a valid consideration in a deed of donation. Okay? Ang tawag po natin dyan doon sa obligations and contract is is that considered as, di ba maalala nyo doon sa obligations and contracts niyo, classification of contract according to cause or consideration. You have your onerous contract. You have your gratuitous contract. You have your contract of pure beneficence. Di ba? Tatlo po yun. So, negotiable instrument is a contract. That is what we call as onerous contract because the consideration is valuable. But love or affection, that will be a valid consideration in a gratuitous contract, but never in a valuable, but not in an onerous contract. Negotiable instrument, onerous po yan. Hindi po siya gratuitous contract. Okay? Ngayon, Section 26, holder for value. Who is a holder for value? Well, very easy. Holder for value refers to any person who has given valuable consideration in the instrument. Okay, yun lang po ang holder for value. Any person who has given valuable consideration in the instrument. But that holder for value is not only limited to the person who actually received. Okay, you are a holder for value not only insofar as the person who actually received the consideration, but to those parties, to those individuals who have been party to that contract prior to the delivery of that valuable consideration. Okay. So take for example the following. Maker, he issued a promissory note in favor of P or order for the amount of 1 million. However, M issued that to P, but P did not give him any consideration. Okay? He did not receive any valuable consideration. So is P considered a holder for value? Obviously, the answer is no, because he did not give any valuable consideration in the instrument. If P later on would transfer that to A again did not give any consideration, so A is not also a holder for value. If A will transfer that to B, who did not again give valuable consideration, then B is not a holder for value. But if B will now negotiate that to C, and he delivered valuable consideration, so he gave valuable consideration, then in this scenario, C is considered a holder for value. But to whom is C considered a holder for value? Is C considered a holder for value only insofar as P is concerned because it was only B who received that amount? The answer is no. Under the law, C is a holder for value not only to the person who actually received the valuable consideration, but he's a holder for value insofar as A, P, and M are concerned. Okay? So even if M did not receive valuable consideration from P, even if P did not receive valuable consideration from A did not receive valuable consideration from B, when C gave valuable consideration to B, he is a holder for value, not only insofar as B is concerned, but to the other parties, such as M, P, and A are concerned. Okay? Next to consider is a holder for value the same as a holder in due course? Holder in due course as found in your section 52. Di ba sabi ko nga noon sa mga previous discussion natin, sabi natin, you are a holder for value if you will be able to meet all the requirements in section 52. Yung nakakahon na requirements doon. A holder for value is one who has given a holder for value is one who has given valuable consideration in the instrument. That's a holder for value. But how about the holder in due course? Under section 52, sabi niya doon, ito yung mga requirements kung ano ang holder in due course. That he took it in good faith and for that the instrument is complete and regular upon its face, that he became a holder of the instrument before overdue and without notice that the instrument has been previously dishonored, such was the fact that he took it in good faith and for value, that at the time it was negotiated to him, he has no notice of any infirmity or defect in the title of the person negotiating it. So yun yung mga requirements in order to become a holder for value. So if you notice, one of the requirements to become a holder in due course is that you must be a holder for value. Saan ko yun makikita? Third paragraph po ng section 52. That he took it in good faith and for value. In other words, to become a holder in due course, it is necessary that you are a holder for value. So, what is the conclusion that can be derived here? All holders for value are holders in due course. But a holder for value is not always a holder in due course. They are not the same. You can be a holder in due course and at the same time a holder for value. But if you are just a holder for value, it does not necessarily mean that you are already a holder in due course. Okay? So, yun po yung mga dapat tandaan dyan. Okay, dito na tayo sa section 27. Okay? Where a holder has a lien on the instrument arising either from contract or by implication of law, is deemed a holder for value up to the extent of his lien. Okay? So, paano po ba yung application nito? That you have a lien in an instrument up to the extent of your claim in the instrument. So, take for example, okay? So, you assume that a promissory note has been made. Meron yata dito. Okay, so dito, sa case na to. So in this case, Alexis makes a note for the amount of 10,000 pesos payable to Malu, okay, the holder of that instrument. However, the payee Malu owes Pinky the sum of 6,000 pesos. So, ano ang ginawa ni Malu dito? So, from Alexis being the maker, he issued that to Malu, the payee. Pero si Malu may utang daw kay Pinky. So anong ginawa ngayon ni Malu? Malu negotiated that instrument to Pinky for the amount of 6,000 only to secure the payment of his indebtedness to Pinky in the amount of 6,000 pesos. So in that particular case, considering that the obligation of Malu to Pinky is only 6,000 pesos, then Pinky's claim or lien in the instrument is only limited to the amount of 6,000 pesos. So insofar as that 6,000 pesos is concerned, Pinky is considered a holder for value because that is the pre-existing obligation of Malu to Pinky. So, binigay ni Malu yun kay Pinky for the sum of 6,000 pesos. So, yun lang ang claim ni Pinky doon sa instrument na yun. Okay. So, pwede bang i-endorse ni Pinky yung pinag-abutan ni Malu ng instrument? Okay? For the whole amount of 10,000? Or only for the sum of 6,000? Yung buo ba na 6,000 lang? O yung buo ba na 10,000 ang pwede niyang i-negotiate? Kasi yung instrument, 10,000 eh. So yung buong instrument for the sum of 10,000 can be negotiated or only up to the extent of his lien of 6,000 pesos. Okay? So, tingnan natin. Ang sagot dyan is, you qualify the answer. It depends. It depends on whether the maker of the instrument has a valid defense against the payee, such as absence of consideration. So, if the maker has a valid defense against the payee, such as absence of consideration, even if Pinky, the person to whom Malu has handed over that instrument, is a holder in due course, Pinky can only collect the sum of 6,000 and not the entire 10,000 pesos. It is only up to the extent of his lien of 6,000 pesos. Why is that? Bakit ganon? Bakit hindi niya pwedeng kolektahin yung buong 10,000 when in fact, she is a holder in due course? It is because insofar as the 6,000 pesos is concerned, dahil holder in value siya doon, holder for value siya doon, that is also the amount that he can be considered a holder in due course. So yun lang, holder in due course siya for 6,000. That's the reason why he can only collect the 6,000 pesos. The 4,000, hindi siya po doon holder for value. So if he is not a holder for value, insofar as the remaining sum of 4,000 pesos, then technically, Pinky is a holder not in due course for that amount of 4,000 pesos. So, the maker has a valid defense insofar as Pinky is concerned, insofar as the 4,000 pesos is concerned. So, ang tanong ngayon, possible ba na yung isang tao maging holder in due course and at the same time holder not in due course? Well, that is the case that happened to Pinky because her lien in the instrument is limited only to 6,000. She's a holder for value only for the 6,000 and as such, a holder in due course for the 6,000 pesos. But since she is not a holder for value for the 4,000 pesos, it follows that she is not also a holder in due course for that 4,000 pesos. Okay? So 6,000, holder in due course. 4,000, holder not in due course. So yun po yung reason. She cannot be a holder in due course insofar as the 4,000 pesos is concerned because she did not give valuable consideration for that sum of 4,000 pesos. Okay? So, yun po yung ating section 27. Now, section 28. Dito na pumapasok yung tinatawag natin na absence of consideration or failure of consideration or partial failure of consideration. What is this absence of consideration? Okay, what is failure of consideration? What is partial failure of consideration? What's the distinction between absence of consideration from failure of consideration? Okay? So, absence of consideration, dito sa absence of consideration, there was no consideration that was intended to pass. From the very start, you have no intention of giving or providing valuable consideration in your instrument. That is absence of consideration. Not a single cent, not a single amount was intended to pass to your transferee or holder of the instrument. Whereas in failure of consideration, initially, okay, you have intended for a valuable consideration to pass. But later on, or in reality, or in actuality, no consideration was given. So yun po yung distinction ng absence of consideration from failure of consideration. Sa absence of consideration, initially, wala ka talagang balak na magbigay ng value. Dito sa failure of consideration, initially, may balak ka na magbigay, kaya lang walang nailipat na consideration. Okay? So as a defense, absence of consideration or failure of consideration is just a personal defense. It is valid defense only against a holder not in due course. Ano naman po yung tinatawag nila na partial failure of consideration? In partial failure of consideration, which is said to be defense pro tanto, partial failure of consideration, kagaya doon sa example na kanina na lien na yon, that you are a holder in due course for the sum of 6,000 and then for the 4,000 you are a holder not in due course. Yun po yung concept natin ng partial failure of consideration. That insofar as the 4,000 pesos is concerned, you are a holder not in due course. For the 6,000 pesos is concerned, you are a holder in due course. So there is a partial failure of consideration, which means that it is a proportionate defense. I can raise Failure of consideration insofar as the 4,000 pesos is concerned because that is not supported with valuable consideration. Insofar as the 6,000 pesos is concerned, since it is supported with valuable consideration, you are presumed to be a holder for value and it follows you are a holder in due course. Okay? Sir, ano po ba yung mga examples ng mga pwede naming magamit dito sa failure of consideration or sa absence of consideration? Well, for example, you will issue a check, okay, as payment of a forged or falsified certificate of stocks. Wala kang binibili doon. There is no valid exchange. Nagbigay ako ng promissory note, nagbigay ako ng cheque, but there is nothing that I am receiving from you because it is a falsified document. So, there is absence of consideration. Okay, ano pa? You will issue a promissory note as a consideration for an illicit affair. Okay, sabihin mo, oy, sige, gagawin kitang kabit ko, gagawin kitang mistress ko. Okay? But in exchange, magbigay ako sa iyo ng cheque, okay, for the sum of 1 million pesos. Well, the issuance of that promissory note or check for that illicit affair is considered to have been issued also without valuable consideration. Okay? Or kaya, nag-file ka ng declaration of nullity against your spouse, okay, against your wife, or against your husband. Inoppose ngayon ng other party. Anong sinabi mo? Oy, bigyan na lang kita ng cheque, bibigyan na lang kita ng promissory note, babayaran ko na lang yan so that you will withdraw your opposition to the petition for declaration of nullity that I have instituted. Then in that situation, the issuance of that instrument was made for an illegal consideration. Absence of consideration pa rin po ang tawag natin sa ganon. Okay? So, pakatandaan, yung absence of consideration, no consideration was given. Zero, nil. Okay? Wala na inaibigay. Failure of consideration, merong naman, kaya lang, konti kulang. Okay? Partial failure of consideration, kagaya doon sa example natin, na hindi yung buong amount ang nabigyan ng consideration. In which case, insofar as the portion which supported with valuable consideration, you're a holder for value, you are a holder in due course. But insofar as the portion not supported with valuable consideration, you are not a holder for value, and as such, it follows you are a holder not in due course. And then, your Section 29, ito pala yung distinction ng absence or want of consideration. So, want or absence of consideration embraces transactions where no consideration was intended to pass. And then failure of consideration, it implies that the giving of valuable consideration was contemplated. So there was the intention to give it at this very start, but it failed to pass. And then it's just a personal defense which can be raised against a holder not in due course. Your Section 29, accommodation party. Who is an accommodation party? Accommodation party refers to a person who affixes his signature as maker, drawer, acceptor, or endorser without receiving valuable consideration therefore and for the purpose of lending his name to some other person. To be considered an accommodation party, you should affix your signature merely for the purpose of lending your signature, merely for the purpose of lending your name. Okay? Either as maker, drawer, acceptor, or endorser. And without receiving valuable consideration therefore. Ang sabi niya dito, therefore. Anong ibig sabihin po nito? Without receiving valuable consideration therefore. It means that you did not receive any consideration coming from the instrument whereby you have affixed your signature as maker, drawer, acceptor, or endorser. Sa halimbawa po, may tinanggap po akong bayad. As long as the source of that payment did not come from the instrument itself, you are still qualified from becoming a holder, an accommodation party. Okay? So, binigyan ako ng payment para daw sa pirma ko, sir. Pero yung source naman nun, hindi naman galing sa instrument. You are an accommodation party. Sir, in-encash na niyo yung cheque. Pagkatapos niyang na-encash yung cheque na pinirmahan ko, binigyan ako ng pera, binigyan niya ako ng share doon sa value ng check or instrument na tinanggap niya. or in-issue ko sa kanya, then in that case, you are not considered an accommodation party. Why? Because you have received valuable consideration coming from the instrument. So dito, tandaan ninyo, tingnan mo muna yung source kung saan nanggagaling yung pera na ibinibigay sa'yo, yung bayad para doon sa pirma mo. Okay? Take note, if you are an accommodation party, you are liable in the instrument to a holder for value, even if that holder is aware that you are not a holder for value. So accommodation party is liable to the instrument, notwithstanding at the time of the take of the instrument, he knew him to be a holder for value. Okay? So ito yung totoong meaning ng without receiving valuable consideration, accommodation party, receiving consideration for lending his name. Still, he did not receive a value. Why? Because the phrase should be in the context of not having received any value by virtue of the instrument. So yung sabi ko nga, yung source dapat ng payment hindi galing doon sa instrument. Kung galing yan mismo sa instrument, you are not an accommodation party. Okay? Alam niyo, nung estudyante kami, ang tawag namin dyan, ini-specify namin yung accommodation party. If you will sign as a maker, ang tawag sa'yo, accommodation maker. If you will sign the instrument as a drawer, as an accommodation, ang tawag sa'yo, accommodation drawer. If you will sign it as an acceptor, accommodation acceptor, and so on and so forth. Okay? So, let's take a look at this illustration. Okay, suppose that one who signs for a purpose of land is name. Okay, ito na lang. Gamitan na lang natin ng iba. Basahin nyo na lang. Hindi ko muna post. Okay, so we'll make use of this. A wants to borrow money from P. Okay, the amount of 1 million. However, when A went to P to borrow that money, P declined. Sabi niya, ba't kita papautangin ng 1 million? Yun ngang utang mo nung grade 1 tayo na piso hanggang ngayon, di mo pa binabayaran. 1 million pa kaya. I will not pay, I know you will not pay that. So I do not trust you. So yun ang sinabi ni P kay A. So ayaw niyang magbigay ng pautang. So ano yun ang sinuggest ni P kay A? But, sabi ni P kay A, dahil naging classmate naman kita magmula grade 1 hanggang college, pagbibigyan kita. Provided that you will be able to convince your friend M to be the one to issue the promissory note in my favor. Ayan. So, A ngayon, we went to M and he convinced M to issue the promissory note in favor of P. Okay? So, true enough, ano ang ginawa ni M? He thereafter prepared a promissory note. So, I promise to pay. Sino ang ilalagay na pay? It is P. Okay? To pay or order the amount, order 1 million pesos. Signed. Sino ang pipirma dito? So, you will affix your signature for the purpose of lending your name. Okay? M. Yan. Si M ang pupirma. It is not A. And thereafter, ano ang ginawa ni M? M thereafter delivered that instrument. So, M, he thereafter handed over the instrument to A. And A, upon receipt of that promissory note for 1 million, anong ginawa niya? Binigyan niya si M ng 5,000. So, A gave M the amount of 5,000 pesos. Sabi niya, may pera pa naman ako dito sa pitaka ko. Yan po, ibibigay ko na sa'yo. Yan, he handed it over. Okay, he gave the 5,000 to M. Assuming that M received that 5,000 from A. Is M still considered a holder? Is M still considered an accommodation maker? Sabi ko nga kanina, it does not mean that when you have received an amount, that you will no longer be qualified from becoming an accommodation party. You consider, tingnan mo muna, saan galing yung 5,000? Did it come from the instrument? The answer is no. It did not come from the instrument. Rather, it came from M himself. So, in that situation, it came from A himself. So, in that scenario, M is still considered an accommodation maker. But how about if, when M handed over the instrument to P, ano ang ginawa ni P? P went to P and received the 1 million. And from the 1 million, okay, so kinuha na niya yung 1 million. And from the 1 million, binawasan niya yan ng 50,000 and gave the 50,000 to M. In that case, is M still considered an accommodation maker? Take note, saan galing po yung 50,000? It came from the instrument which was issued by M. So, M is already disqualified from becoming an accommodation party. Okay? So, ganun lang po. And take note, dito, if you are an accommodation, okay, so tuloy lang natin. In this promissory note, so M now issued this promissory note in favor of P. As between M and A, okay, yung totoong nangutang si A, as between N and A, who do you think is the one liable? Who should pay the instrument? In this scenario, it should be A who will be paying P the amount of 1 million. Kasi siya naman talaga ang totoong nangutang. Siya yung totoong debtor. And A and M merely accommodated A. So accommodated party lang si A, accommodating party lamang si M, accommodating maker. Okay? In the end, it would still be A who would be paying 1 million to P. But how about if A did not pay P? Hindi niya binayaran si P. Ngayon, so dito, tanggalin lang natin. So, A did not pay P. Question. Can P collect from M the amount of 1 million? The answer would be yes. He can collect the amount of 1 million from M. And can M refuse to pay P on the ground that there is failure of consideration? Okay. Can M raise the defense of failure of consideration? The answer is no. He cannot raise that. Even if P is fully aware that M merely issued that for the accommodation of A, even if P is fully aware that M did not receive valuable consideration from the instrument, still, M cannot raise the defense of failure of consideration. Because as an accommodation party, if the accommodated party will not pay the pay, then it is the accommodating maker who should be answering. Siya pa rin ang person liable doon. Now, how about if M now paid P? Okay, so binayaran na ngayon ni M. Okay, so he paid P. What will be the right? Okay, what will be the right of M against A? Kung nagbayad na ba si M kay P, discharge na ba yung instrument? Na-extinguish na ba yung instrument? The answer is no. Not yet. Why? Under section 119, paragraph B. Until such time that the instrument has been fully paid by the accommodated party, the instrument is not yet discharged. Okay? So, the second ground for the discharge of the instrument is payment made by the accommodated party. So, until such time that A would pay M the amount of 1 million, the amount that he has paid to P, the payee, the instrument remains to be a valid and existing instrument. It will not yet be discharged. Now, how about if this is the scenario? Okay? Gamitin ulit natin to. Okay, so, same pa rin. Si A is the real debtor and it was just accommodated by M. And P is the debtor. So, sabi natin kanina, if A will not pay P, then it is M who should pay P the amount of 1 million. Tama yon. Ngayon, how about if P now will negotiate the instrument to X, third person? And if ever on the due date, X will go to M to collect the 1 million, can M raise the defense of want of consideration? I am not liable. I am just an accommodation party. I did not receive any valuable consideration from the instrument. can that be a valid defense that can be raised by M against X? Kung kanina, if it is P, M cannot raise that defense because even if P is aware that M did not receive any valuable consideration from the instrument, M is still liable to P, the amount of 1 million. But in this situation, hindi na si P ngayon ang nangongolek. It was already negotiated by P to X. So it's now a third person or X to Y, sabihin natin. And it is Y who is now collecting that amount from M. Can M raise the defense that he did not receive any valuable consideration from the instrument? Well, the answer there is it depends. Can M raise the defense of absence of consideration or want of consideration? The answer is it depends. It depends on what? It depends on Y is a holder in due course or a holder not in due course. If Y is a holder in due course, then he cannot raise that defense. Hindi pwede. But if Y is a holder not in due course, then he can raise that defense. Why is that? Because want of consideration is a personal defense, and being a personal defense, it can be validly raised only against a holder not in due course. Maliwanag yun? Insofar as P, yung mismong pay, yung first na pay natin, hindi mo pwedeng gamitin yung absence of consideration, even if P is aware that you did not receive any consideration. But once P negotiated that to a third person, X to Y, then siya yung maniningil sa'yo, evaluate mo muna. What kind of holder are you? Are you a holder in due course or a holder not in due course? If you are a holder in due course, I will still pay you because I cannot raise the defense of want of consideration. But if I am a holder but if you are a holder not in due course, you did not meet the requirements in Section 52, then I have a valid defense against you. And that defense would be absence or want of consideration. Sir, halimbawa po, corporation po mga yan, applicable din po ba yung sinasabi ninyo? Well, insofar as corporation is concerned, applicable ba yung accommodation party? Settled is the rule that corporation cannot be held liable as accommodation parties. Why is that? Because the issuance of that instrument without any valuable consideration is considered now as an ultra vires act of the corporation. And you know that if it is an ultra vires act, the corporation itself cannot be held liable. So sino ang magiging liable doon? The one personally liable are the guilty officers of that corporation. Yung mga nag-issue ng instrument without valuable consideration will be the one to be held in their personal capacity. But the corporation itself, it is not liable. Why? Because that would now be tantamount to an ultra vires act. Okay? So that will be the end of your Module 3, Unit 1, Sections 24 to 29.